Hello everybody. Today we're going to talk about using group work in online classes. Just wanted to introduce myself first. I've been at Georgetown College for, this is my start of my 22nd year, and I am an instructional technology specialist with a degree in instructional design. I teach also research methods, and I live in Lexington. I was born in Bowling Green, and my husband also teaches in the education department. We're going to be primarily looking at using group work and apps and digital tools to build community, enhance collaboration, and promote deep understanding of content and practice. In this little presentation, we'll first talk about how to set up group work. We'll talk about how to organize the groups, assessing group work. I'll show you some examples from my class, and then we will complete an exit slip at the end. So first of all, we're going to start about how to set up groups. And there are lots of different ways to do this, but the way I do this is I try to figure out something about my students. I use the knowledge about my students to set up the semester-long groups. And I typically go 3 to 4 per group. I do sometimes have groups where I have like 4 in a group, and then sometimes I'll have 5 in a group and maybe make one of them the floater to help out other people in the group. But basically, I start out my semester with surveying students, either using Google Forms or a Canvas quiz. And I also use a Canvas discussion forum to do a getting to know you post. Other ways that I have seen this done, and I have used in the past, I have used Flipgrid, and we'll talk a little bit more about Flipgrid, but Flipgrid is a tool. It's free. You can go and create sort of like a discussion in Flipgrid, but instead of people typing, the students typing, it actually creates a video discussion, so you can have the students actually do a video prompt, answer a question using video, and then you can set that even up as a discussion so that other students can go in and respond using video. Lots of other things that Flipgrid can do. You ought to check it out. I've seen other people use like a shared Google slide presentation and have each student add a slide containing pertinent information. That's also a great way of doing that. And then you can have that Google slide. You could even, during a webinar, you could even show some of the slides each week, so that would give students some more information about each other. But I typically ask for different kinds of information when I am doing this. I ask for their name. I ask for something interesting about them. I usually ask for contact information like a telephone number or school email account, just in case I get desperate to find them. But I also ask things like, where do you teach? How long have you taught? And depending on what the class is, what's your experience in using technology and things like that. And that way I can take, for example, if I have a lot of elementary students in my class, I can decide that I want to create groups that maybe are all elementary. Or if I'm doing a class and I have a group of technology endorsement students versus literacy students in the class, I can set up my groups so that they can be all the literacy people in one group and some of the technology people in one group. So usually I try to do that. If I don't have enough people in the group to do it that way, I do sometimes mix groups, but I typically try to keep my groups as tight as possible and have something in common with each other. One of the other things I do in my online classes is I make sure it's easy to locate the group information right from the home page of the class. I used to would assign these groups and then put them in the module where I assign the group project. I have found over time that it's easier if you just put a page up and you go ahead and put all the information about group work right there on the home page. And so this is a copy of one of my classes that I'm teaching actually right now, and notice that right here is where the group information is kept. So how do I organize my groups? The way I do it is I have a table where I put the student's name, and then I have them have a group number and a member number. And so the member number is the group's role. And I do this because in a few minutes you're going to see how I rotate those tasks they have to do or the roles they do based on their group member number. I keep my, as I said before, I keep my groups together for the whole semester. I don't switch groups during the semester. I also make sure that I set clear group expectations and responsibilities. So I'm going to show you an example of this. This is what I would put on my homepage of my class. I talk about group leader responsibilities. I rotate group leaders. And so this talks about what the group leader needs to do. I talk about the group member responsibilities and give them some clear guidance, overall guidance. I talk about grading the group work and how I will grade it, and just give some other general guidelines for my groups. I also rotate the group leaders, as I said, and I rotate the role requirements. So here's an example of one of my projects that I do. And if you'll notice, member number 3 is the group leader this week. And so I tell them, for example, in this week, the group leader organizes the group activities, chooses the collaboration tool. How are they going to talk to each other? Make sure everybody is participating and helps anyone in the group who's having problems. And then group member number 4 is doing something different. Group member number 1 is doing something different. Group number 2 is doing something different. And then I also tell them what they have to upload to Canvas that week. And I'm trying to be very specific about what they are doing, what they're responsible for uploading to Canvas. I do a lot of work in promoting group autonomy and trust within the members and within me, the instructor. I allow the group leader to make certain decisions. Sometimes the group is all over the place and the group leader it has the final word. I allow the group to determine their own communication plan. I don't require them, for example, to use the same plan every week. Typically they'll find one plan and they'll all like it and they'll keep with it. I ask the group to just make sure, the group leader make sure that there is a communication plan with the group. I see some of my groups set up Zoom sessions or Google Meet or Google Hangout. It used to be Google Hangouts, Google Meets. Some of them use text messages. I don't care what they do. Some of them have used tools like Facebook groups and things like that. It's just whatever they want to do, how they're communicating with each other. I reassure all group members that reporting problems to the instructor will be confidential and will be handled in a caring manner. So what I talk to my group members about and my students about is that if somebody's not pulling their weight in the group, first go to the group leader. And then let the group leader contact me. But if the group leader is the one that's not pulling their weight, contact me. I'm not going to go out and penalize that group leader. I'm going to contact them and say, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? I've noticed that the group members, I've had some group members who are concerned about their project this week. Do you need me to help you with anything? Or maybe this is a week that you just don't have the ability to be the group leader this week. If you want to, you can talk with your group and see if somebody else will switch with you. And so you can be the group leader next week and they can be the group leader this week. And that typically works beautifully. Also something that happens is if somebody else in the group just can't contribute, like I have students that have surgery or have had a death in the family and they just can't contribute that week. And so the group can either take on that extra work or I have told the group that if it's a big deal and they just don't feel like they can take the extra work on, then I'm happy to step in and fulfill that role for them and contribute. Or I will find a volunteer from another group to pop in. And I've never had any problems with that. They typically appreciate that kind of flexibility. So how do we assess group work? I have chosen to only grade individual contributions to the group. I started out in my group work sometimes actually giving a group grade, and it's really easy to do that in Canvas because you can set up groups within Canvas, and then you can just grade the group project once and everybody gets the same grade. And people screamed when I did that. It was not a good thing. It really it felt very high pressure, and I didn't want this to be a high pressure situation. I actually want to use this group work as a way to actually promote a good class climate and to promote collaboration and not to promote like a blame culture. So what I do is I tell the group members exactly what I want them to upload to Canvas. I create an assignment in Canvas. I have them usually type a short reflection telling me what they contributed to the group and where I can find their work and how well the group worked together. And once again, that is a low pressure thing. What I'm really looking for is let me see what you did with the group, make sure that you actually pulled your weight. And if the student for some reason didn't do much that week in the group, then usually I can reach out to them and talk to them about that. Maybe I can say, well, I know you weren't able to do much this week. How about this? Do more next week. Do more of the next group project and make it up to your group. And typically that is all I need to do, and they all work great together. I do have some group members that it just, no matter what you do, they're just never going to get their group work done. And those are the people that I have to eventually penalize. But overall, I don't usually have a whole lot of problems. I also sometimes grade interactions between the groups. So, for example, I will put together a group project. And after they've done their group project, they will upload it to a discussion forum or a Padlet or some kind of a Google app. And then I have them and assign each student in the class to review several group projects from the other groups. So they're sort of like peer teaching each other, so that each of the other groups can see the other projects. And that's one of my usually big reasons to do these group projects, is to produce those little presentations. Sometimes I have had groups present their projects during a particular class module or webinar. So I've said, we're going to all work on group presentations, and in week 4, group 1's going to actually present their project, and they're going to lead the discussion forum. And then group 2 is going to do that in week 5, and group 3 is going to do that in week 6. So I do that kind of thing as well. So let's look at a few good apps, great apps that I use when I'm doing group work. So for building community, some of the things that I do is I have weekly webinars. They're not required to attend live, but they are required to be either attended live or listened to. And one of the things I have found to get students really involved with these is to make sure that I have opportunities for them to talk, discussions, breakout rooms, polls, lots of interactions. Okay, so they're not just sitting there watching me, they're actually talking. When I added breakout rooms to my classes, to my webinars, my attendance shot up dramatically. I also try in these weekly webinars, by the way, to do something fun in them, to give them a tip that maybe they didn't know. Sometimes to have another student in the class present something. So that has really helped a lot. I encourage my students to use group communication tools like Zoom, Google Meet, Google Groups, and to do things like getting to know you activities and things like that. I also create docs like Google Docs where students can add ideas that can be shared with everyone in the class and or in groups. And I put links on the homepage in Canvas linking to the college and productivity-related resources. All these things together are some ways that I use to build community in my online classes. Collaboration, to build collaboration. I do a lot of Google stuff in collaboration. We use slides, groups prepare shared presentations. I give them templates for those sometimes. I give them specific things. I'll sometimes will say, like, group member number 1, you're responsible for finding 3 references. And group number 2, you're responsible for writing the pro. And group number 3, you're responsible for, or member number 3, you're responsible for writing the con. So I give them specific roles in there. They put something together as a group using slides, and then they present it or put it on a forum for other people to watch. I've used Google Sites. Google Sites is like creating a website. I use that, especially in one particular class. They create a website with a case study for a student, fictitious student, for assistive technology. So that's a project. When I first give it to the students, they're like, "Oh, I've never created a website before," and it's so easy to do that they just run with it, and it's phenomenal. I do a lot of in Google. I use Google Docs. I have my groups peer assess papers. As my classes have pretty much gone all Google because it's so easy to collaborate. However, some schools use, almost all schools have access to Office 365, and we have that here at Georgetown. You can do the same things in Office 365 as far as using Word, and they can still collaborate. I've just found that in the schools, so many people are using Google now. It's just really makes it really easy. I definitely use a program called Padlet. Padlet is a great place where you can create online discussions and back channels and things like that. I have them post to Padlet, and then they can vote up the most pertinent information to them and then see who rises to the top. And I use something called power-up points for outstanding group work. Power-up points are actual points that I add to the final grade of the class, and I give them for working above and beyond. So one of the things that I do is if every member of the group consistently tells me that this particular group member just did a phenomenal job. Like I had this one student, the first week of class, that we had a group work. She set up the communications plan. She really did a great job getting that group together. She organized it beautifully, and they were like, "Oh, this has been so much fun. My group leader was amazing." I gave her a power-up point because I'm trying to reward that good behavior. So I give them for other reasons too, and I have a limit of how many power-up points they can earn in a semester. But that is one of the reasons I give power-up points, and I give them out few and far between. But it has been a wonderful tool this semester that I've been using them. We also can use group work to promote that deep understanding. So, for example, these apps that I use for that, I mark up readings to emphasize important content. I learned that the hard way, especially this semester. I'd assign them all a final project to work on, and I'd give them an article to read, and they just didn't get it. They just didn't get the article. It was, to me, it seemed really easy, but to them it didn't. So I finally gave in. I took the article. It was in a PDF file. I used this wonderful program called PDF Exchange Editor, and I highlighted pertinent parts of it. I even then copied out certain parts of it and put them in a slide so that I could show that to them during a webinar, so that I could really emphasize that important content. But the marking up the readings, I've done that in other classes as well, and it's amazing how wonderful it works. I use them to create interactive content that connects to assessment. I use Google Forms. Ed Puzzle is an amazing program. Google Slides, Google Docs, creating hyperdocs and things like that. I provide different modes of content delivery. You can use YouTube playlists to put together a whole bunch of different YouTube videos that they can use. Ed Puzzle, Canva, which can create infographics and all kinds of other cool things, by the way. If you don't know Canva, you need to play with Canva. It's so wonderful. And then the other things I use, I don't reinvent the wheel. I look for textbooks and other online content. For example, there is the Commons, the Canvas Commons. There is, and that's a typo, by the way, I'll fix that, Canvas Commons. Things like the Iris Center, Digital Promise has micro-credentials. And the neat thing about Digital Promise is you don't have to make them go get a micro-credential, but there's all the information there that they would have to do in order to get one. So you could assign them to do that activity. It usually comes with a rubric and everything. And then when they're finished with the class, if they want to submit what they did to Digital Commons and get that micro-credential, they're already there to go. I also use, I didn't put it here, but I do a lot of, since it's a technology class, I typically am teaching, and at least this one is a technology class that I've been giving you some examples from. I have them do online tutorials through Google. They can take a quiz at the end, or take a screen copy of the page that they took the quiz, and then I can use that to make sure that they got that understanding of the tool. So I do a lot of that kind of things in my class.